Here's the fourth test. Now catch this one, because some of you guys have already raised this week, and I'm glad you did, which is, come on, man, you ever playing a game telephone? You sit in a circle, whisper a secret in the ear of the person next to them, they whisper it in the ear of the person next to them, and by the time that secret reaches the end of the circle, it's totally changed.
I was going to raise that point.
Good. Okay, that's important, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay? So that's the fourth test. Manuscript evidence, which is great what this guy raised who just left.
Okay.
How big is the gap between Jesus living and the written records? Very important question. It used to be taught on every state university campus in the United States, in the religion department, that the Gospels were not written for 200, 300, 400 years after Christ.
Yeah.
But what happened was, we have discovered so many Greek early manuscripts that we know that that's false. The Gospels were not written 200, 300, 400 years after Christ. They were all written between 20 and 60 years after Christ. How do we know that? Well, we got a fragment of the Gospel of John, dated between 115 and 130 AD in the John Rylands Museum in Manchester, England. So you see that one manuscript find smashed that whole school of thought that taught the Gospels weren't written for a few hundred years. Then we discovered the writings of the early church fathers, like Ignatius, Bishop of Antioch, who in 95 AD writes letters, and in these letters he quotes Matthew, Mark, Luke. In other words, at 95 AD, those letters were obviously already written because he's quoting him in his letters. See, that's why we know that those Gospels were written in the first century. Now, the Gospels that we have in English today, sir, are based on over 5,200 Greek manuscripts or pieces of manuscript. That is why we have such a high degree of certainty that we really have what those eyewitnesses wrote. If the Iliad comes closest to it, and the Iliad has something like 600 manuscripts.
Yeah.
But for the New Testament, over 5,000. So if anybody gives you the old telephone stuff, they just don't know what they're talking about. We don't have the New Testament by telephone from the French and Spanish versions. We have the Greek manuscripts, over 5,000, all agreeing to an infinitesimal degree. So we really have what those guys wrote. You owe it to yourself, as a thinking human being, read the Gospel simply as history, forget about it being the Word of God, you don't know that, and ask yourself, does the historical evidence of the way Jesus lived, taught, died, and rose from the dead point to him being a fraud? If it does, reject him. Or does it